Hello everyone, Zelleranth here, and today we're going to take a look at Homa. She's a unit that I have not seen really talked about much by content creators. I mean, she's probably coming up within the next couple months based on our predictions of the next banners, but she is in the video of the new expansion within Spiral of Destinies, and there's always the potential, as we've seen with Cocoa, for her to be moved up in the banner order, and she's actually a really good unit from what I'm looking at with her kit. And I think she's not getting the attention that she deserves, especially for people who want to pull on Auguste, because I think she will pair extremely well with Auguste. And if she were to actually come before we got Auguste, I would say you would want to pulver her if Auguste is your main target. So we'll just get right into her kit. To start off with her trait, it's pretty simple, but it kind of builds into her entire kit, revolves around, I think it's a falcon. Or some kind of bird. I don't know what kind of bird it is. But it's basically all around her pet. So with the first star, you get a Nor block, and it increases her physical attack by 5%, kind of the default that you see with a lot of people. But after you or her friendly unit, called Baller, which is the name of her bird, is staying with actively, whoever the bird is actively staying with, when they attack, then you will call Baller to continue attacking, causing physical damage equal to 20% of your own physical attack. So the unique thing with this bird is you can have it attached to a certain unit. You can have it attached to Homa, and then when Homa attacks, the bird would do an additional 20%. Or you can attach this bird to another unit, and then when that other unit attacks, the bird will do an additional 20%. And that's already kind of going to where I say this will pair really good with Auguste. Because there's more than just the extra damage that the bird does when he's attached to a unit. We'll get to that when we get to the skills. So as you increase your stars, it basically increases the damage on the star 2. When you get to star 3, it adds this extra condition for increases physical attack. And then healthy, the movement speed increases by 1. And after the friendly unit is staying with the neck, so it just increases attack. So it increases movement speed at this point, and then when you get to the 4-star, it increases attack again, and then on the last one, and I would actually probably want to get her to 5 stars, because then you actively can steal 2 random buffs and 1 energy for Homa. So it can buff her up while also buffing the unit that the bird is on. Now, when we get to the skills, one of the skills that actually attaches the bird is Circling Assistance. So we'll get to that here in a second. So in our initial skill, it's Repel Shooting. It's a very standard skill. It does select an enemy within a cross range, so so it's within a cross up to 3 distance, and it deals 135% damage and knocks back 2 squares. So this is not actually something that I would be my primary kit, but it does look to have some value, as we've already seen with knockback and how useful it can be on knocking enemies off the map, just to be an instant kill. Well, this one's actually a ranged knockback, so you don't have to be next to them. So if you ever run into a scenario where you just have a couple of units you need to knock out, you can just have this attached to kill those units real quick. But I typically don't see myself using this in her kit, because there's a lot of good stuff throughout her other skills. So now we'll go to her level 1 skills, and in this case, I would actually want, which I don't typically do with most units, I'm actually going to want both level 1 skills with her. The first one is kind of the core of her kit, so I'd say this is the priority of the two. So this is an instant, and it allows Balu to stay on a target. So you basically select a unit, one of your units, or Homa herself, and it puts the bird, attaches the bird to that unit. And when the bird's on that unit, it gives them a move +2, so they have an additional move. That gives them jump, so just like with Cole, where they can go on larger heights, so they can jump higher than typical units. And both parties gain attack, additional attack +2. And during this period, when calling Baller to attack or heal, it will cause 1.5 times the effect of the corresponding skill, which lasts for 2 rounds. So we'll kind of get into that when we get to the other skills. But basically, if there's a skill that tells the bird to attack, if he is attached to the person, it's going to do 50% more damage than what is stated. So this is a really, really good skill. And this is where I say that Homa is kind of a core good support for Auguste, because Auguste is a breaker. He has lower move than most units. So with this bird, you just give him an additional +2 move and give him the ability to jump. I mean, that's a massive buff to Auguste, because I mean, one of the things is his movement and capabilities, which is kind of his #1 weakness. And this completely negates it, because now he's moving as much as a Seeker. He can jump just like Cole. He can get around and do his damage, as well as getting an extra little bit of damage from up here. All right, now we'll want to take a look at this skill in practice. So we have it on here on a CN video where they're going to actively show how the skill works. It's very simple, but you just look at the map here. It'll pull up in a second. So you have Homa here, and you have Auguste, you have Gloria, and so she's just going to take the bird and send it over to him. So sends the bird over to him, and he gets all those buffs as mentioned. Fairly simple and straightforward. Great for Auguste, but it's also going to be great for other units as well. I mean, you can think it's good on Raliwa. I mean, heck, you could put it on someone like Saffiyah and give her an extremely long range. So an overall great ability there. So this is, to me, the core of the kit. This would almost always be on her if I'm using her. But then we get over to her second skill here, and this is another really good one. And much like we've seen with now Kokoa and some other units, this is a skill that has 2 things actually built into it. So it's 2 skills in one. So it has Wings Flutter and Cool Breeze, and this has no cooldown. So you can use this every turn. So if you pick Wings Flutter, it's a skill which you call in Shahen, or I don't know how to pronounce that name, to deal 80% damage to a single target, and you apply blind to that target, and you can't really see it on this view, but if we go to it here, I can click actually in here and I'll actually explain what blind is. Or I have to actually click the skill again here. So it will deal 80% damage and applies blind. And so blind is a debuff where the single target attacks will be avoided by the target. And for the percentage, it's an 80% chance to miss. So it's kind of like a weaker version of dodge, but only for the unit that has been attacked. So 80% damage, then it gives them blind. Also, it has physical defense 3 down. And summons Baller to deal 40% damage to all units 2 squares within 2 squares of it. With a 50% chance of inflicting blindness for 1 round on them. So this is a really strong skill for making it where the enemies don't have the ability to hit within a giant large area. And it is a fairly large area that this hits. Alright, I got the video up here with the skill. So it's quite fast and be a little hard to see, so I'll try and pause it, or I might rerun it again. But you'll see here as she runs the skill, she runs up, she attacks the enemy here, and then you see it fly up here and hit the 2 enemies up top. So it hits this enemy, and then hits these 2 up top. So everybody in that range gets hit, and it's hard to see, but they get debuffed 50% chance, and I think both of them got the debuff here. So you can see they got debuff on them here, so both of them go to blind state. So this is an extremely useful skill, and making it all the units around these enemies more tanky because they're going to miss. It's like a mini dodge, but for the enemy rather than the unit specifically. So overall good there, and that's just one of the skills on this one. So when you go to the other skill, Cool Breeze, this calls Gory, so it's like another bird. Her entire kit revolves around these different birds. So it calls Gory to heal the target. The healing amount is 80% of the target's own physical attack. Dispels any treatment. So this will remove the debuff where a heal does nothing. It'll remove that debuff. And so then it calls upon Baller to heal all allies within 2 squares of his location, healing an amount equal to 40% of his physical attack, and dispels 2 deduction. So this is actually a fairly large heal in that. So if you're using her, she's like a mini healer that can help out in assisting like whoever your other healer is. And this is built right into this skill as well, so you have both access to this one. So we can go ahead and take a look at this one in practice. Alright, let's look at this skill in action here. So it's going to first, you're going to see it heal the unit she selects, which is herself, and then heals those within the area around her. So it's going to heal Metha and Gloria. So an overall, not a large heal like someone like Angel or Anana can do with their AoEs, but it's actually got quite a large range, and it's a nice little skill that can be used to top off your units on the front line with her. So it's an easy pickup on her skills here. Getting both her first levels are a must in her kit for me. These would probably be always, both of these skills are going to probably be the two main skills that I'll always have on her, and then the third one will be more flexible based on my needs. So then we get up to our level 3 skills. We have Shield Breaker, which is a passive. When attacking an enemy with a shield, attack is increased by 30% and ignores 40% defense. Just a simple shield break, and I find this in a similar situation I have with Edda, which has a lot of shield breaking. I'm not using Homa for doing damage to the enemies specifically or breaking their shields. She's more of a utility for my other units. So this one's an easy pass for me. So then you come over here to Harmony, which is another passive. So at the end of action, if you have attacked or used a skill, then you will heal all allies within 2 squares of Homa for 20% of her physical attack value and dispel 1 debuff. So this one's just another nice little heal in it. So if you have a bunch of allies and you're all together, it'll work really well with this one because you can use Cool Breeze to heal everybody around you. And then immediately after turn, because you used a skill, it's going to do another heal on them. So a nice one if you're feeling like you're going to need an extra healing in the combat. So you could use all 3 of these together, especially if you're going to need the extra healing. So overall, this is the one I would select for the level 3 for sure. So when it comes to our reactions, we have Rabbit. So this one is when attacked, damage taken is reduced by 8%, which is kind of standard with a lot of reactions you see. And after being actively attacked, she gains move +2 for 2 turns. So this is basically you get attacked, and then she's able to move. I mean, this one's not really anything special, especially when you come over here to her other level 5 one, which is kind of unique to her. So this is a reaction. So before being attacked by a melee attack from the back or side, so if an enemy comes to attack her from the back or side, she'll call Shannon, or one of her birds, to inflict blindness. So as she's getting attacked, it'll put blindness on them. And if you remember, blindness makes it where the enemy has an 80% chance to miss the attack. So it's basically like giving her a dodge on them, which lasts for 1 round and can be activated once per round at most. So the first person that attacks her, if they try and hit her from the side or back, they're going to get blindness, and they're going to most likely have a high chance of missing their attack. And then after dodge, so if they miss and she dodges, she performs a counterattack which can cause 75% or 70% physical damage and retreat 2 squares. So this is a quite unique skill that we haven't really seen, I think, with any other units that I know of currently in the game. So we'll go ahead and take a look at this one in practice. Alright, when we take a look at the skill in action, so first you're going to see the enemy come up to attack her. Before they get to attack, she applies the blindness. Then they'll attack, she'll dodge the attack, jump back 2 spaces, and then do a counterattack to them. And it kind of goes quite fast, and she can do this multiple times. So they come up, she applies blindness, so it's showing it here 3 times. Flicks blindness, they attack, she dodges, jumps back, and shoots them. Dodges, jump back, shoot them. Another one comes, dodges, jumps back, shoots them. And if there isn't the room to jump back, she won't actually jump back, she'll stay in place, but she'll still do the counterattack. Overall, a great skill on her reaction. This would be my choice every time. I don't see where I would really want to use Rabbit probably ever in her kit, just because it's so useful on this one. If she gets attacked, being able to not only dodge the damage, but also attack back. So we get up to our level 7 skills. We have Scattering. This is just an AoE 3x4, 70% area damage, and it puts move 1 on them for 2 turns. Just a small damage for an AoE. I mean, I could see some uses for it, but when you come over here to Brawl Shooter, this one looks to be the better of the skills here. Oh, I did not mean to click it there. Okay, so this is a passive, and so when you attacks adjacent enemies, if there's an enemy within 1 square of the player's range, the attack is increased by 15%, and the crit rate is increased by 30%. So this one's when you attack an enemy, someone that is adjacent will be attacked as well as part of the passive. So when we take a look at this in action, she just attacks the enemy. She's going to attack one, and then the bird's going to come down and hit him again. So a simple little passive, nothing too crazy with it, but if you're going to pick of one of the 2 of the level 7s, I would do this one. And this one, as the attack is increased by 15% and crit rate increased by 30%. So it can be a hard hit and nice for finishing off an enemy. I don't really see me really using either of these two in any kit. But if I was going to pick one, it would definitely be this one. Just so I can, if there's an enemy where it's like, oh, I need just one little bit more damage on them, that can be something I can pull into it. So when we get to the basic skills, we have the one on the left here, Fighting Blades, a single target attack causing 100% physical damage. After attacking, you can move again, and the distance is the remaining movement +1. So this one is just if you basically an attack, and then you can move again if you haven't used all of your movement. You get all of that +1 to it. So this can be good for maybe going in, hitting, and running. But then you have our other one, which is normal attack that deals 100% physical damage, applies move down 1 to them, and enemies in healthy state for 1 round. So both of these kind of have their uses. To me, this one's going to be more useful. The Fighting Blades, being able to hit and run, is more useful than just putting a move down 1. And it has the requirement that they have to be healthy, and it's only got a 1 round turn. It does have a range. So if you're wanting to do damage at a range, I guess that's useful. But this one is a range 2. It's just 1 to 2 versus a 2 to 3. So to me, always being able to hit and run is going to be better, especially if they're 2 away, because then you can get close, attack, and get far back off. But then again, I don't see me using my basics very often because there's so many. I have these 3 skills, these 2 skills down here that I'd probably be constantly using. Then we get up to their 11th skills. There's the one on the right here is the absolute pick for this one. But when we go to the 11th skill, on the left, Pierce, that's a single target attack that deals 150% damage when the target is in the injured state. So that's a requirement. They have to be injured to get this extra. You'll deal an additional 20% damage when the target is in the dead state, dealing an additional 40% damage. And what it means by dead, it means dying. That's just a translation on here. Got some requirements. So if they're injured, this is basically, hey, the enemy's injured or hurt or dying. This is going to finish them off. This is basically finish off the enemy attack. So I could see some uses for that. But then the one that's really kind of unique to her and kind of utilizes her entire kit will be this Hashroom Carnival one. And so this one's kind of a little confusing when you kind of read it. I do have a video to kind of see it in practice, though. So the target and the teammate where Baller stays, so where he's at. So if you remember with the skill down here, you can attach him to a unit. So the target and the teammate, so whoever the bird's with, they gain noise. And noise is basically a dodge. And they deal 60% physical range damage to all enemies within 2 squares of the target, and then applies where they can't use active skills or their passive skills, so they're basically stuck at basic attacking. To enemies within the target range, all effects last for 2 rounds. After the skill is released, Baller stays on the unit for 2 rounds, so it'll stay with the person for 2 turns. So there's a lot with this skill here. But when you go in here, we can look at what noise is. It's just a buff that dodges the first single attack. Can be affected once per round at most. So it basically gives the unit that has a dodge. So if you're using this with Auguste, you use the skill and he will get noise on his kit. Alright, so when we go ahead and look at this, it'll go quite quick, but it'll go through it multiple times. It'll be kind of hard to see just based on what the animation looks like. So when it starts up here, you'll see all the birds come in. There'll be like a big fighting thing here. You get that dodge buff, and it does all the damage to the enemies around them. You can see she moves, she casts it, all her birds come in, they start banging up on her, give her in that dodge, doing the damage to the enemies around her. It doesn't really show much in it. In the thing or in the animation, it's hard to kind of tell. You just gotta know that it puts the dodge on the unit that they did that on. So in that case, they had Gloria out there. So Gloria had a dodge if she was attacked, but then it did that 60% physical damage to everybody around her within 2 squares. So you can see that massive amount of area that can hit. And then additionally inflict active skills. So if it doesn't kill those enemies are not going to be able to use their active skills or their passive skills, and it lasts for 2 rounds. So this one's a very good, just like your other one, a good way to neuter the enemies so that they can't really do much. And so when I look at all of her skills here, and we'll go back on this one, There's like the four main skills that I would see being the primary part of her kit when it comes to her active skills would be the one where you can attach the bird, the one with the two skills, so you have the damage and the blindness, or you can choose to do that AoE heal. Then you have Harmony to give additional healing if needed. And then you have the Hasharam Carnival, which is another one that can reduce their active skills, passive skills, put the dodge on whoever the bird's on. So those would be the four main ones that I would I would rotate based on the needs on my kit. And then for sure my reaction is going to be the Flying Shadow game, and then on my basic it's going to be Fighting Blades. I feel like her kit is very easy to build around. It's very obvious on the skills you want. Now, when it comes to like the main kit, it's almost probably always my standard kit will probably be Circling Aid, where you can attach the bird, then the one with the damage and the cool breeze, and then I would have Hasharam Carnival. Harmony would be kind of a situational. I need that extra healing because I could beat this level, but my teammates are dying in this one scenario. So that could be situational that I would probably replace these two or swap these two out if needed. But typically, to me, I see the kit as being these three right here. So the last thing to look at here will be the weapons that you'll want to use on her, or her gear. So on the weapons, I think it's fairly obvious. She uses bows. I think it would be the longbow of Matures. It's just a nice little bow that has the debuff that gives the increased damage taken. So she's just being a utility, helping out someone else do the damage, at least in the general sense. So having the debuff and increasing damage taken, to me, that's an easy pick. And then when it comes to the trinkets, it's kind of the same situation. You're buffing an ally or debuffing the enemy. So you'd probably want to take something like the Disaster Bottle, or what if you eventually start getting multiple copies of this, take the Auguste skill scrolls. So this one gives that one ally level 2 buff and plus speed. To me, this is, I mean, if you can get multiple copies of this, especially at 5-star, that's easy the one I would select. But of those, or you could take the Armlet here if you want to do that extra little bit of damage, 12% of the HP. It just depends on the scenarios you're in. I feel like overall her gear is pretty easy to pick there. And if you don't have the bow, the Matures one, you could probably go with, I think it's Meteor Line, which is another one that puts a debuff on the enemies. So that's pretty much her kit, her gear that you'll want. Overall, an amazing character. Definitely is going to be overlooked, I feel like, by a lot of people, simply because we have Auguste, Saffiyah, Akambe, and Cocoa all coming up, most likely back to back to back. Unless they put her in the front, which I'll feel really bad if they actually put her before Saffiyah or Auguste, because I think a lot of people will skip her, even though her kit is extremely good, especially for Auguste. So overall, you just want to think about your units that you'll be pulling. If you're going to be an Auguste main and you're willing to skip like Saffiyah, Homa will be a definite pickup you'll want to get right before Auguste. And then both being breakers as well. A nice combo will destroy any defenders. So overall, a good kit. Just keep her in mind when it comes to your pulls. I would definitely want to save up. And I definitely will be pulling on her when she comes out. I'm actually going to probably be pulling on every single unit as they come out at this rate, because they all are so good. But we'll just kind of see how my luck, if it can keep continuing the way it is. But we'll see from there. Thanks for watching.